Going to review the nitrogen cycle now in case you had some questions or didn't understand your diagram, just to make sure you understand that process. Just like the water cycle and the carbon-oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle is a cycle. Doesn't really have a beginning or an end, but it shows the way nitrogen moves through living and non-living things on our planet. So the first step really begins in the atmosphere, where most of our nitrogen is located. Remember, about 78% of our atmosphere is nitrogen, not oxygen, as you might have guessed, but nitrogen. That nitrogen, though, is in a form that is not able to be absorbed and used by plants. We write nitrogen in the atmosphere with the chemical formula N2. The nitrogens are connected or bonded to each other. And in that form, it's not usable by plants. So that nitrogen has to go through a process which we call nitrogen fixation. We say the nitrogen gets fixed into a form that plants can easily use and it's able to combine with other atoms for the plants to be able to use in all their plant processes. So if we were going to start with some steps, the first step is nitrogen in the atmosphere, and the soil, there is some of this nitrogen in the soil, gets changed, or we're going to use the word fixed, into a form that can be used by plants. Now, how does it get fixed? Well, there's a couple of ways it can be fixed. It can be fixed by lightning in the atmosphere. So when those atoms get struck by lightning, they're able to separate. It can also be fixed by bacteria that's in the soil, or by special plants. There are certain types of plants that have root systems with some little pockets or knobs on them that actually are able to fix nitrogen as well. Things like soybean plants. A lot of bean plants can do this. So when that nitrogen gets fixed, it's now in a different form, and you can see it's in a single atom form, and that atom then can combine with other atoms in the plant to work those plant processes. So the second thing that happens is the plants then are now able to absorb that usable or fixed nitrogen. Now remember, this is any kind of plant life. It doesn't have to just be trees like our picture showing here. It could be corn plants or flowering plants or tomato plants or trees, of course. Any kind of plant that can now absorb that nitrogen or bring that nitrogen in through its root system and use it for growth processes. You may not have thought about this before, but one reason that farmers add fertilizer to soil is to add some usable nitrogen into the soil. Before you could easily buy fertilizer products, farmers had to rotate their crops so that they could put some type of crop in the soil that would fix the nitrogen there, so that when they put another crop like corn that doesn't fix nitrogen in, there was some nitrogen in the soil that could be used. So that's where crop rotation comes in. They may not have understood the science of it, but the process was, as they rotated those crops, the nitrogen was able to be fixed again for other crops. So now that the nitrogen's fixed, it's able to be absorbed by the plants. That's the second part of the process. Then some type of animal organism eats the plant, and that might be an animal like the giraffe I've tried to draw here, or Miss Barr used an elephant when she taught this. Absorbed by the plant, or after it's absorbed by the plant, then it's eaten by the animal, and eventually the animal will die, and in the decomposition process, return that nitrogen back to the soil or to the atmosphere as a gas. And again, just like the other cycles we talked about, the cycle then repeats. That nitrogen back in the atmosphere has to be fixed again, or the nitrogen that's released in the soil has to be fixed again before it can be reabsorbed by plants, and the cycle continues.